let's look into how we can actually work with models in ZBrush. As we said before, if you just drag out whatever we have and you enter edit mode, you can't really do anything with it.
And this pertains to everything that's a sort of a mesh within ZBrush already. Yeah. Like this doesn't. If you import, which we'll get to later, if you import your 3D model, this is not a step you'll have to cover.
Yeah.
But 3D objects in ZBrush are 3D, but they're not editable 3D.
Yeah, exactly. So in order to make them editable, I'm just going to show you this with a sphere. If you were to sculpt currently, just using, let's just switch to the standard brush. We're going to cover brushes later on. If you were to sculpt, you're going to get a message saying, to enable sculpting, please convert this 3D primitive to a polymesh 3D by pressing the Make Polymesh 3D button in Tool Palette. Essentially, what this means is, click this button. Very simple. And if you click this, you're going to see that it duplicates the model. And you now have an editable mesh. Now we can sculpt on it. And this is something you're going to have to do every single time you start from a primitive. The geometry is, the model is going to be modified pretty much under Tool, Geometry most of the time, which is here. This is the main menu for everything we're doing here. As you can see here, if you sculpt, it's very coarse. We need more resolution for most things here. We only have 8,000 polys.
And this is really where ZBrush starts to shine. Because ZBrush can handle a megaton of
approximately megaton.
really, really big resolution stuff.
Exactly. So unlike traditional 3D software like Maya, Modo, whatnot, which can handle a couple of thousand polys, ZBrush can handle millions. So the way we do this is we subdivide the model. We hit the divide key, or we hit Control D.
Control D should really start to, like, as soon as you start working with ZBrush, it should really incorporate that into your hotkeys.
Control D is something you use every single time you work with anything.
Yeah.
So you hit Control G, and see what happens. Now we get finer resolution. And essentially, every polygon got split into 4. So the poly count now has increased by 4 times. So now we have 2 subdivision levels here. We have level 1 and level 2. And now we can sculpt on this, and we can see we have even finer resolution. But if you want more, we can just hit Control D a couple of times. And now you see we have 500,000. And performance is still butter smooth. And we can subdivide this pretty much up to about 10 million polys before it starts to go crazy.
Yeah. I think because of the releases of ZBrush, and we're working on the 64-bit version that they released, you technically can go up to 80 million polys.
Yeah.
But you probably don't want to do that.
No, I tend to stay between 5 and 10 million for most of my stuff. So this is essentially how you get resolution in your model. It's just called subdividing the model. And you can see I can switch between the various resolutions here by just sliding here. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to use, you want, like Morten said before, you want to use hotkeys for everything. The hotkey to go down a subdivision level is Shift D. And the way to increase it is to hit the D key. Exactly the same thing here. You can also just hit the buttons, but yeah, just use hotkeys for as much as you can.
I guess this is one of those things that actually makes sense in ZBrush, where D for division or divide it's always centered around those for the old 3, which is really nice.
So with this down, you can pretty much start to sculpt on your model once we cover brushes and all that. But from a technical point of view, we have enough polygons now. So one thing I want to cover is I want to show you how you can hide parts of the model. This gets a bit complicated.
Yeah, this is where logic starts to break down.
Yeah, so like we said before, a lot of stuff in ZBrush is based on muscle memory. If you were to design something based on logic, ZBrush would be designed very differently. So the way we hide something here, let's say we want to hide a portion of the model, is we can hold down Control, Shift, and just drag. And this is going to hide everything outside the red area.
Or the green area.
The green area. Colors are hard.
It's the red-green thing, you know.
And then if you hold down Control, Shift, and drag again, and you hold now Alt key. So Control, Shift, Alt. Everything within now the red area is going to be hidden.
And the thing is, you can Control, Shift, drag, and then you can alternate between additive and subtractive by holding down Alt or letting go of Alt. So it's like if you change your mind, you're like, oh, actually I want this area hidden instead of visible, you can change it.
But this is very useful. This is something you're going to use a lot when you're sculpting.
And now you're probably wondering, how do I get my model back? It's gone.
The way you do that is you Control, Shift, click. And then you get everything back again.
The important thing is you have to click off of your model in order to do that. So you click on any empty part of the canvas.
If you Control, Shift, click on it, it's going to invert it.
So these things are like, they take a little bit of time to get used to. To be honest, we still mess up once in a while. You're like, ah, damn, what was it?
So please just refer to the notes in the document which follows along the tutorial, because this is confusing. But once you get this, you're gonna learn it relatively quickly. So Control Shift drag, Control Shift drag with the Alt key to delete, Control Shift click to make everything visible again. We also want to talk about something called the transpose tool. Up here you can see we have move, scale, and rotate. And this is a very powerful tool.
This is again one of those tools where it differs a lot from traditional 3D applications.
Yeah.
Where you kind of start to realize that ZBrush doesn't adhere to standards.
Yeah. Normally in 3D applications you have a manipulator. You can just move it 5 units in the x-axis and you have perfect control. The ZBrush equivalent is wonky.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It can be a bit hard to work with.
It's actually really powerful, and once you, again, like everything else in ZBrush, once you get it down, you start to understand it.
Yeah.
I guess it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to work with.
So if you use the move tool now, you can just drag out a transpose line. And we have a couple of different things here. One, destroys everything. Second one, scales it in this axis. And the middle one moves it around.
So these controls only pertain to the move controls. These will differ if you go into the scale or rotate mode.
For most of the time though, I stick to the move tool here. You can also use scale. The hotkey is W, E, and R. The scale is the same thing. If you hit one of the corners here, so every circle here will do different things.
And also depending on which axis you're on. Right now we're scaling on between the Y and the X axis.
So you can drag it out, and now you can just scale up and down. And this actually changes your scale. Unlike doing this is just like zooming in.
Yeah, this is navigation right now.
This is navigation. This is changing the scale of your model. Same with rotate as well.
So maybe if we add another subtool, it's easier to visualize the scale and movement of it.
So if we duplicate this, we're going to show you how to do this later on. So now you can see we have one guy here, and if we just move it around, you can now see how it moves. Scale and rotate. This takes time to learn. One thing which is useful is if you hold down the Shift key, you're going to snap on axes.
A nice thing to add is with the rotate tool, if you rotate on the middle yellow ring, it rotates around the axis. So right now you can see it's the green, it's the Y axis, so it's going to rotate around that axis.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas if you take the top of the bottom part, it's going to rotate sort of around an anchor point.
And this seems a bit cumbersome, and to be honest, it is.
Yeah.
Compared to a traditional manipulator in 3D, it is a bit cumbersome, but it does have some really nice advantages, which we're going to cover in the masking chapter, I believe, when it comes to like posing a character, and you can do tons of cool stuff with it.
Another, I guess, handy thing about the transpose line is if you click, well, with any of the manipulators activated, you click directly on the model, it snaps to the normal, the sort of out-facing normal angle. So if you want like a specific direction based on anything topological, you can click on the model.
Absolutely. And one thing to keep in mind is you need to be in edit mode. You can see here, if you exit edit mode and you go to move tool, you get this like weird moving tool here. This is a legacy feature. This is something you will never use this ever.